the spring football season, which has been underway for a while. Obviously, Carter, you've done a fantastic job giving us notes from the media allow practices. The spring game this weekend, like I've kind of been mulling this over throughout the start of the week of really what we are going to expect to see, and really areas that were weaknesses last year. Are we really going to see any improvement or anything in a spring game? Probably not. But give me the names on both sides of the ball that you believe are going to be players to watch on Saturday during the Maroon and White spring game.
Okay. Well, no one cares about offensive linemen, unfortunately.
I do. I care about offensive
Yeah, it's really, really sad to me that no one cares. Honestly, I'll try to go position by position.
We can do that, yeah.
Offensive line, I would say Mark Naboo would be one to watch just because he's coming off a season-ending injury. Probably expected to be the starter there, going to be competing there with Kolifeu, the Utah transfer. But can he reclaim that? Can it be just an easy transition off that injury? Demetrius Crownover, another guy, gained like 10 or 15 pounds this offseason. Don't know if that was the right move.
Tackle, yeah. I mean,
yeah, but I think this team under Elko, one of their big focuses is they like to be bigger. They like to get bigger guys on the O-line, and they like to have, they're not the kind that's going to have these ballerinas at tackle that can
dancing bears, yes.
Yeah, dancing bears. And it's going to be more of the bigger types. And so I'm curious to see what he looks like there. Quarterback, obviously Marcel Reed is the guy there. What kind of steps has he made is kind of the question. With him, spring games are hard because they aren't live. You're not, hitting the quarterback. And so you can't see a lot out of him as a runner that's kind of simulates a real game. But I think the real question with him is sort of his deep ball and his accuracy. He was about a 61% completion last year. His goal is to get to 70 this season. So how much more accurate is he? I think in practice, when it comes to just watching him, looks really good from just a short intermediate standpoint, but the deep ball is kind of where you start to see some trouble there. And obviously with pressure in his face, it's even more different. And the numbers tell you that, hey, the deep ball has been kind of the concern with him. So can he push it and get to that next level? Jacob Zeno, first time we'll see him. So that'll obviously be a guy to watch. I think from a running back standpoint, obviously a lot of intrigue with the two freshmen, Tiger Ryden and Jamarian Morrow. But I want to see Ruben Owens and see if he can be someone who could maybe even push Le'Veon Moss. I think Moss is kind of your surefire starter there. There are people out there that are like, oh, no, Owens is just as good. No.
We don't know that.
Le'Veon Moss is the guy there. He will be the starter, assuming he comes off his injury just fine. And so I wouldn't expect anyone to really surpass him. But Colin Klein likes to have a rotation there, likes to involve multiple backs. We saw what Amari Daniels did last year. So I'd like to see what Owens can do. This is kind of a make or break season for him. I think he showed some flashes as a true freshman, but didn't quite, take the mantle. Last year had the setback. So this year, can he prove that maybe, hey, he could be the guy in 2026 after Moss is gone? That'll be my question. And I think this spring game will kind of be the first snapshot. And he's gained some weight this offseason. I think that's been kind of the big thing with him is, hey, can he fight through contact a little bit better? Can he break some tackles? Can he be a between the tackles guy? Again, flashes of it, but he also has gone down pretty easily at times when he has played. Tight end, man, probably the weakest position group last year for A&M. And this year seems to be fairly upgraded. I don't expect Micah Riley to be available for the spring game, but everyone else should be good to go. So you got Nate Borkercher, the Nebraska tight end transfer. You got Amari Nyblack from Texas. I think he's probably your best pass catcher of the group. Theo Mellon-Orstrom obviously had some good games last year, and could he build off that? He's always been kind of viewed as a project, and last year he finally showed like, hey, no, I'm not just a project. There's something here. How much more is in there for him to tap into? I think this group really needs to make a jump, and was quite a liability last year. But I think that they made enough additions to where I think they can be at least serviceable. But I'm really curious to watch Amari Nyblack, just because I think what he did 2 years ago to Alabama makes him a pretty intriguing guy. And then lastly, with the offense receiver, another group where not a great group last year. None of your receivers, I believe, had more than 600 yards receiving.
Yeah.
It was the fourth or fifth year in a row they didn't have an 800-yard receiver. It's been a real curse for this program.
Yeah.
And now they've added a guy that has done that. Casey Concepcion, out of NC State, looks to be as advertised. I think he's your number one option this year. And I also think Mario Craver should be a nice number 2 or number 3 option with the speed that he brings. Those guys are going to be the ones to watch from the receiver group. There are other guys in the mix too that, I think some of the younger guys like Isaiah Williams and Ashton Bethel Roman, Terry Bussey, obviously. Those guys, I think, could make a jump this year. Bussey's kind of missed a lot of the spring with the hamstring injury, so I don't know if we'll see him Saturday. And if we don't, that means the other 2 guys, I think, could get more play. But Concepcion's the guy to know. I mean, I think that's the guy who will lead you in every category this year. And he's not a big guy, maybe not the fastest, but I think what he can do route running wise, quickness wise, I think he's a guy that can get open quite a bit. Sorry if I'm out of breath.
No, you're good, man. Yeah.
Defense. We want to talk defense too.
So yeah, I was gonna say you're 100% on top of the wide receiver rotation, because I think there's been a lot of question marks with that, and I trust me, I was mentioning the progress made by Isaiah Williams and Ashton Bethel Roman, 2 guys who I've loved since they came out. I mean, I just think that if they just make that small jump in terms of route running and really understand the offense, they're going to be 2 names that could give you, a lot of production and a lot of reliability and become a friend to Marcel Reed. Terry Bussey was a name. I remember Will had to correct me and be like, well, Terry Bussey. I was like, well, the reason why I just didn't say Terry Bussey is not because he's not Terry Bussey. We all know how good he is and how good he can be. But like you said, he's been injured. He's been dealing with some issues. And that has allowed these other younger guys to really show, look, we are a much deeper wide receiver rotation than we've been in a while. And when you have a guy like Casey Concepcion who comes in here with his pedigree, who's, I would honestly say, is one of the most versatile athletes they've had in a while. I believe he had, I have to think, like 400 yards rushing a couple of years back. Yep. I mean, he was utilized in so many ways, and not that they're going to be, putting him at running back. Let's be honest, he's too valuable. But
yeah,
but this is a guy, like you said, is going to lead you in pretty much every category. And yes, they are coming back. And we did an article last week regarding Noah Thomas and him leaving for Georgia. And credit to him, it wasn't their usual that we've gotten from Evan Stewart of kind of talking about A&M in a negative light of how they didn't use me correctly. He just basically said, well, they don't have a guy like me. So, they needed one. This was an open opportunity. I hope I can thrive with Georgia. At the same time, you kind of equate that with A&M. There's not a lot of size, right? And that's why what you said with the tight ends this season, having a guy like Amari Nyblack and Theo making that jump. We all do remember him dropping that pass against Auburn in the quadruple overtime game. Those type of plays are so important to winning games. It's as Jimbo Fisher used to say, the inches, right? That is the definition of getting the inches, right? And you got to make those plays. And having a guy like Nyblack, who I do remember I believe it was against Texas, where he made a couple big plays, showed off his elite athleticism. He just wasn't utilized with Texas. I think they wanted him to be a blocker mainly. Guy didn't want to really learn, and look, he's going to have to learn how to inline block a little bit. But I think that Colin Klein is smart enough to know this is a receiver. This is a guy we're going to get out in space and give Marcel a big target. Overall, I agree with you. I would talk about O-line all day. It's my favorite position to scout and watch, but I know that's not as sexy as some people would say it is. But I do agree with you that it is a little confusing why Crownover is gaining so much weight at tackle. But like you said, it has to do with the run game. It has to do with mauling guys and, creating those holes for Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens. And like, that's just, I thought Crownover was always pretty big. I didn't know why you need to add extra weight, but c'est la vie. But it's a position where I don't have any qualms. I do believe that they are going to be one of the better O-lines, and I think that's just going to make this entire offense move better. And I think that's just going to help Marcel develop and finally, I don't think he's going to, hit 70% of his passes. I don't know. I mean, look, I love that they have lofty goals. I really do. And, SEC Media Days is going to be fun as usual when you hear all these players talking about their extremely lofty goals. And it's always a fun time. But, it is good that he's determined to improve. And he knows what he failed at last season. I guarantee, like most of the national people who don't cover this team extensively like you and I do, they're pretty much basing his career off of the Texas game, which is extremely unfair. And I've seen a lot of people not mention Marcel as like a rising player. That is one game against an elite secondary. I just don't think I'm not going to be out there talking about him like in cheerleading for him, but be fair. Like he was in a bad situation last year. He struggled like any quarterback does. And I do have faith that at least in some areas, he's going to improve. Maybe significantly, maybe much marginally, but it's just going to make A&M's offense better. Defensively, I do think, obviously, you and I both know A&M has some defensive line depth issues, especially in the interior. Obviously, DJ Hicks, who spoke last week, is very determined to live up to his 5-star potential. We all remember that this was the number 1 rated defensive lineman in the 23 class. I remember Oklahoma boosters were probably crying after he committed to A&M. He was just that good. And, we haven't seen much. He's been in a loaded rotation. Obviously, he had last season was pretty average for him in his first really starting season. And look, he's the guy now with Albert Regis. Him and Albert are the guys they are going to be dependent on to stop the run, get some pressure inside, and help guys like Cassius Howe, Rylan Kennedy, and the 4 transfer portal additions rush the passer. But there is some depth issues. Tyler Onyema, I always screw his name up, from Iowa State. Very versatile. Obviously, DJ Hicks praised him and said this is one of our most versatile guys. You can really line him up anywhere. That's just one piece. And I know that head coach Mike Elko did kind of discuss, like, well, if we need to add guys, we'll add guys. It's just we can't really expect anything because he's the head coach. He knows what he really needs. They're probably discussing this on a daily basis of, do we have enough inside, especially in SEC play? I don't know if you have any updates on that or not. But what do you really know if they have a plan going forward with addressing the D-line depth issues?
I think it'll be something that they look into. I just think that defensive tackles are so hard to find in the portal that are good. I mean, you're talking about one of the more premium, like, they do not grow on trees. And when a good one becomes available, you're talking about a crazy, crazy bidding war. And so unless you're getting somebody that, like, you think of Nick Scorton, like he had the A&M connection being from Bryan, and like, there was some interest there. Elko kind of knew about him. So I think it made a lot of sense. But unless that happens, I mean, you've really got to outbid everybody for a really good one. I think maybe you try to get 1 or 2 guys there that, maybe they're not all conference players, but they at least give you depth. I think, you've got 3 guys there that you feel really good about. I guess, good enough about. Like
Yeah.
Regis, probably not an all-conference player, but what broke out last season was really good. A lot of games under his belt, and you feel good about him as a starter caliber player. DJ Hicks, we don't really know yet. He's gained some weight in a good way. I think he's put some size on that was needed. I think he's got some experience now. Can he step into, I think Onyedem could be the starter there. Maybe that's a rotation. We'll see. Kind of depends on how they want to use Onyedem. But those three are kind of the guys there. And then it's like, okay, is Dallin Evans the next guy? Is it Jaden Scarlett? Could DJ Sanders, the highly touted true freshman, step in to a backup role? It's tough. You don't have a lot of snaps there among those back end guys. You lost some depth there with like Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy leaving. You lost Samu Tau Manu Pepe. I said it correctly. And so, when you lose some of those guys, it may not seem like a big deal at the time, but then you kind of look and you're like, oh man, all the options here are either guys who've never played or they're like true freshmen. So I think you definitely have to get a guy or two there. It's just how good can you get them without getting in a crazy bidding war. You're also maxed out on your scholarship space for now. Right now, based on my count unofficially, A&M has a scholarship count of 88 players entering the portal. And so obviously you're going to have some natural attrition. You're going to have guys that enter the portal. You could have some medical retirements or guys quitting football. You see that happen all the time. Guys just – I remember Jalen Preston was just like, nope, I'm not playing football anymore.
Yeah.
Bobby Taylor, nope, I'm not playing. Guys that will medically retire. It'll happen. And so I don't know if space is a concern, but you're probably not going to get 12 guys. You're probably not going to get – you got 13 guys in the winter cycle. I would imagine – the most you get is about half of that in this spring cycle. We'll see. I'm sure this is a time where if you're a backup, you're kind of done. You're like, if you're a backup and you're not going to play, if you have some idea, if you're a guy, there's a couple guys that switch positions mid-spring. Do they want to play that position, or are they like, man, that was a last resort move and I'm still a 15 guy. I'm going to the portal. So all things worth watching. But, yeah, I came out with a transfer portal need ranking, and I put defensive tackle at number 1. That's the biggest need. I think receiver is number 2. I think those are really like the two they got to get these. Receiver, you touched on it a second ago, but it's more of a – it's not that they are short of good receivers or promising receivers.
It's a type, right? It's a type. They've gotten smaller and faster.
Yeah. Like if you're trying to make a cake and all you've got are 3 ingredients and not the fourth, like you got to get the fourth ingredient, right, to make the cake, or else you're not going to have
a sloppy cake.
Yeah. Like it's going to be a bad birthday, right? And so they need to get that towering guy, not just for, hey, we're in the red zone, let's throw it up to this guy. Hey, we 50-50 situation, let's get it to him. But also, hey, can you have someone who can block on the outside? Can you have somebody, if your guy blocking on the outside is Mario Craver standing at 160 pounds, that's not a good spot to be in. And you might say, it's just receivers blocking, but it really does.
No, it matters. Yeah, that's the funny joke about it. Is like people always say, well, they're gonna. Remember the old joke with Jimbo Fisher was always, you better learn how to block. I'm like, did you ever play football? You know how important it is for wide receivers to block, especially in the run game? I don't think they know that. I think they just, they play a lot of Madden and they just see, receivers flying around all the time. Like, okay, well, it is an issue. And I do believe that in terms of getting players in the transfer portal, wide receiver might be more attainable at this point. Because like you said, I've kind of looked and there's obviously going to be more players coming out, just kind of random backups and guys you may have never heard of for defensive line. But like you said, it's going to be a bidding war with all the big schools that have the same problems. And like we've seen every season, every team has a weakness, right? Every team has a weakness at some position going into the season. No team is perfect, and I'll use Texas as an example. They are going to be the team everybody looks at, and they lost a lot of players to the upcoming NFL draft, and nobody really wants to talk about that. And yes, they have a lot of talent behind them, but at the same time, it's young talent. It's talent you can't really rely on, and they're going to get the benefit of the doubt because they're probably going to be a top 5 team going into the season, while A&M is probably going to be a bottom 20 type of team. And you and I are talking about their depth issues at defensive line, but I wouldn't say that a lot of national people are looking at their depth issues at defensive line. They're kind of looking at the premium positions, because that's what's going to hurt A&M in the middle of the season. When you don't have guys you can put out there for so many snaps, and you don't have reliable guys when a team starts running the ball on you, and you don't have anybody that can really stop it unless you just start really mixing it up. And that's really what's going to hurt them. I don't, again, like you said, it's a little early, but it is getting late, and we will know if this is going to be addressed sooner than later. But I like to finish with the secondary. Obviously, this is an area where the bowl loss to USC saw Des Ricks, who was a redshirt freshman last year, transferred from Alabama, have one of the worst showings at corner I've personally seen, especially in an A&M uniform. And outside of Will Lee, and a couple other guys, this unit was, I'd say, average to above average. Obviously, the safety play was up and down. Losing guys like Damani Richardson, losing that type of leadership did hurt them, and it was going to take some time to get back to the middle. I think that is an area, especially at cornerback, where a lot of fans are a little bit confused with what they have. They know that, obviously, and you mentioned in your notes last week that Tyreek Chappelle is looking healthier. I think you and Tony Catalina did a really good job of kind of showing that he looks 100% healthy. Like, he looks ready to go, which is a good sign for them. Obviously, Willie is going to be your number one guy and probably your most reliable guy. And really after that, outside of Julian Humphrey, who's another name, obviously coming from Georgia, it's a little muddled, right? It's a little bit like, how much do they actually have in terms of reliability of guys you can count on to come in? And, I just want you can shed some light on that, because I think a lot of fans are a little confused on what's behind those key guys.
Yeah. And listen, most teams in the country have this problem. Cornerbacks are so good. Cornerbacks are hard to come by.
Oh yeah.
So if you have one all-conference guy, sometimes that's good enough. You just need the other guy to not be bad. And unfortunately for A&M, that's not the case last year. I think that, with Des Ricks, I think a lot of his issues were not, hey, this guy's faster or more athletic. A lot of it was between the ears, as far as like, what coverage am I running? When do I pass him off to the safety? That when is the safety going to help? Kind of, you just saw so many miscommunications between him and the safety last year, where it'd be a blown coverage and it'd be like, how the heck did that guy get wide open? Mm-hmm. It wasn't like he was just getting absolutely toasted up and down the field like he was Josh DeBerry, right? Sorry, Josh DeBerry, for this. He was a 5-star recruit for a reason. The guy is a good athlete. He is a long corner. He's got the physical traits you'd want. He's got to learn how to play the position. And I think for A&M last year, did they want to throw Des Ricks in there as a redshirt freshman? No, but you got to think about this. Like, what A&M inherited cornerback-wise was absolutely abysmal. You talk about what Bucky McMillan had to do. That's basically what Mike Elko had to do at cornerback. And, so the fact that they were able to get Will Lee, who actually was their first commitment, pretty impressive. So I think from that standpoint, they just need the other guy to be decent. And I think Julian Humphrey is someone to watch, because at Georgia, which, is kind of the standard, right, for defense and just for, teams, right? Like, they're consistently one of the best teams.
Yeah.
And he was able to become a starter pretty early on in his career. lost the starting job middle of last year. And it's a famous highlight. Everyone's seen it, of Ryan Williams making that crazy catch against Georgia. That was against Julian Humphrey. And
Yeah.
you can't really fault Julian Humphrey there because Ryan Williams is making a crazy play. But it kind of showed what he struggles with, which is kind of turning his head around, making a play on the ball. He can stick with a guy. He can, he has the traits to stick with guys. It's just finishing plays is where he really, really struggles. And so, as he gets another year another year of experience and a new system, is that something that he can kind of develop? If you just have one thing you got to work on, can that help? Des Rick's similar, right? Like he's got the makings. It's just, can he learn it? And you added a new guy, coaching-wise, Lyle Hemphill in the back end, that I think his sole purpose is to help guys like Des Ricks, square things away schematically. And so, you mentioned some of the other guys that could be in the mix there. Javon Thomas is somebody who obviously brings some starting experience. I think he's similarly, he's dealt with some injuries, and he's similarly thrust into a situation where he played a lot earlier than he should have. He got thrust into the Miami game in 2023 and gave up a really big play, and it was just like, yeah, you shouldn't be putting in a true freshman in that situation. Last year, redshirt, or I can't remember if he's redshirt or not, but he was hurt for most of last year. Yeah. And so now that he's healthy, now that he's 2 years in, he showed enough to where he could see the field early. He just wasn't ready and was dealing with injuries. Now that he's healthy, can he put that together? So you got three guys there that have experience, that are a few years into college now. And again, you're just looking for somebody that's at least serviceable, someone who's not going to get burned, someone that's not going to blow coverages. I think having a guy like Will Lee on the other side should help you. Probably means you're going to get picked on more. It probably means you're going to get targeted more. But it also means you have more opportunities to get picks and to make plays. And so, yeah, it's those three guys to watch. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's again, like you said, it's a premium position. We see, I think A&M just kind of gets pointed out more than anybody because they did allow some big plays last year, and obviously Rick's kind of ending the season the way he did. I really don't think it's fair, because I agree with you. I think he's extremely talented, and I think this was a lot of this was technical aspects of the position, learning him. Humphill is a guy who can really fix that. I do believe that is one of the reasons he had became an assistant, why he came to A&M. He knows that I've worked with guys like this who just haven't mastered the position yet of just playing it correctly, because there is a difference of, he's a great athlete, but like you said, doesn't turn his head. He's going to get burned by guys who are just a tad bit quicker than he is. And so, again, it's a position that I'm not extremely worried about, but because of their history and because we just know that, look, there are going to be teams in the SEC that can burn you and will burn you. So you just hope that they can learn enough this offseason, this spring, going into fall, and he has a group that he does trust enough, right? Because you went into last season really not knowing we had a guy like BJ Mays, who I really do hope he has at least a pretty decent NFL career. He really probably helped himself make some money by the way he played at the end of the season. He was really A&M's best corner outside of Will Lee, but you don't have a guy like that this season. You hope it can be like a Julian Humphrey while you brought him in. He's at least a veteran. He's played enough SEC football, right? You think like he's played a lot of college football overall, so he's going to be that other guy that can pair with Lee, and you don't have to worry about those two. It's just everybody else you hope don't burn you, right? Lastly, the safety position. I think that you have guys like Marcus Ratcliffe, obviously Brooks and others who could end up being very, very, very good, or, you know, guys who could kill you in the run game and make a lot of mistakes. We've seen some issues last season where late hits and just boneheaded mistakes were a big problem, especially early in the season. Really, to finish this off, where do you see this rotation? What do you see it looking like? Is this going to be a strength for A&M, or kind of one of those areas we'll kind of wait and see?
I think it's a weakness until they finally put it all together.
Yeah.
All three of those guys, I mean, Bryce Anderson, 3 straight years, it was, man, this guy's got potential, but is it ever going to click for him?
Yeah, and he's a guy, just to interlude, yeah, he was a guy who I would honestly say he had his worst season last season. So it's one of those things where, yeah, he's got to improve during his final year.
Dalton Brooks, the same thing. Marcus Ratcliffe, wouldn't say it was a great season for him either. I would still expect Anderson and Brooks to be the top 2 guys there. Miles Davis is somebody that, you know, has shown flashes in the spring. Maybe he gets into the mix. But as far as the collective group, I think what they really struggled at last year was tackling. I mean, how many times did they fail to wrap up?
Mm-hmm.
Did guys just go right past them? It was a real weakness for that team, and it's why I think there were so many explosive runs against this group. And you also had the blown coverages. It just kind of became, you know, what is this group good at? You know, and Ratcliffe had a few picks early on, so you thought, hey, maybe you got something here, and then he just kind of faded off. And I think maybe the reason for optimism is a couple things. One, I think you could talk yourself into Bryce Anderson as a resurgent year because a couple things. One, he was hurt all of last year, and not a lot of people know just how bad it was, but he played through an AC joint sprain in his shoulder, which, you know, pretty gnarly to play through if you're tackling guys and wrapping up. Very hard to tackle. So it kind of makes sense that he wasn't able to do it. Also was his first year moving from nickel to safety. So that was an adjustment. And then obviously first-year head coach, Mike Elko, first, you know, new system, right? So in high school, he wasn't, you know, some full-time defensive guy. So it's not like he's been playing safety for 15 years. This is all very new to him. Well, he's healthy now. This is his second year in the system, second year at safety. He's got the athletic traits. I mean, the guy is a good athlete. And so maybe this is the year it comes together. Dalton Brooks, also great athlete. You know, it's not like, you know, I think you can look at certain guys and say, well, there's not much more he can do because he runs a 8.4 40-yard dash, right?
Yeah.
That's not these 2 guys.
He's tapped out his athletic potential, yeah.
Right. These guys have the potential. It's just they got to kind of put it together. And again, I keep talking about Lyle Hemphill. His addition, can they nail down sort of the schematic things that, hey, can you embrace the things that they're good at? Can you, you know, I was talking to, I think it was Jay Bateman. It might have been Elko. I'm mixing them up, but one of them said, I asked about kind of the run defense issues, and their thought was, well, it's not that like A&M's just built to be bad against the run. It's that they were giving up really, really good players were getting open in wide spaces. And so, yeah, of course you're not going to tackle Jeremiah Love when he's one-on-one isolated with Torian York, who's just not the athlete that Jeremiah Love is. And it's one-on-one, and all Jeremiah Love's got to do is make one little juke, and boom, he's gone, right? Like, hey, that's not Torian York's fault for not making that play. It's maybe the defensive line's fault for letting him get into such an area where he's one-on-one with your middle linebacker. Yeah. So there's some things structurally that I think this defense could clean up where, hey, those things aren't allowed, you know? And so it's all 3 levels, but so I think the safeties maybe at times, yeah, they're bad tackling, but maybe that's also because they're in those short area spaces where it's one-on-one. So if they can shore up the things in front of them, maybe that also will help them to take a step forward.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we didn't obviously mention the linebackers. Because I do think that if you do have clean safety play and you have clean enough defensive line play, you've got obviously Torrin York, who I think is going to have his best season yet. I really do think he's going to take that big jump, and Scooby Williams, who, well, if we're talking about fixing those issues, he completely fixed those issues he had at Florida last year, and so you're talking about guys like Bryce Anderson and others. If they take that same route, then we're talking about a very good safety rotation. I mean, that's the thing. It's all there. It's just put it together for final season for a couple of you guys. And for a defense that, look, you need to be, because of what we talked about with the defensive line, you may need to be even better because of those depth issues. So that's on them. Lyle Hemphill, we will be talking about him a lot, I think, going into fall, and his name's going to start popping up because basically those little tweaks that we're going to see from some of these players, especially on defense, you can attribute that to his coaching, and that's going to be big.